everyone. This is the URBONUS podcast. I'm the host, Donatos URBONUS, and I'm joined by some really solid gentlemen. Of course, my beloved co-host from Karşıyaka İzmir, Perry McCollum, and Unicaja Malaga point guard, Kendrick Perry. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello. Good to be here.
What's up, fellas? Appreciate y'all having me on.
Hey, show some love to KP's Twitter profile, Kendrick Free Perry. He likes to think loud, I would say, and frequently drops some good thoughts. So don't forget to follow him on Twitter. And to me, Kendrick Perry YouTube channel was a discovery today. I mean, the effort and quality that was brought on the table, especially for the past few months in Malaga, is worth recognition. So give a look at his YouTube channel as well. Give him some pressure to stay consistent with the content that he publish, and enjoy his run on YouTube. I didn't know that you were so active on social media, to be honest.
Yeah, every now and then, I guess, like, I'll kind of go through these little like slumps where I'm not, but then once I get kind of active, I'm on there. So kind of like you said, I speak freely at times, whether my wife, likes it or not. I know she be on my head about my Twitter, my tweets sometimes, but it's just, sometimes I feel like my voice got to be heard. So what better platform to do it in than Twitter? And then, like you said, YouTube, if you check me out, please stay on me about being consistent, because, I got a lot of content in the works, but, through the ins and outs of a long season, man, it can kind of escape my mind. So I'm asking y'all to please keep that pressure on me.
Yeah. Guys, a lot of stuff happened recently. I've shared a list of topics that we might go through last night, but the way things were happening in the last 24 hours kind of a little bit reshaped our plan. We have Kendrick Nunn officially signing with Panathinaikos until the end of the season. We have both Greek and Serbian derbies that were played in the last few days. We have Dusko Ivanovic's return to Baskonia again. We have 3 Spanish league teams making big noise in the EuroLeague at the start of the season. We have best player in Europe debate. So a lot of things to cover and discuss. But let's start with the fresh news about Kendrick Nunn signing with Panathinaikos. 28-year-old guard, a 4-year NBA player who averaged 12.1 points and 2.4 assists for Miami, Lakers, and Washington, is set to make his EuroLeague debut. So just for the beginning, what you guys think about Kendrick's fit in the EuroLeague?
No, I really like it. I think if he's healthy, he's a guy that can create his shot off the bounce. He can create for others. He's an explosive scorer. And we've seen what Ataman does with good scoring guards. His system is open for them. It gives them the freedom to be who they are. And, considering it's going to be his first time in Europe, there's obviously going to be an adjustment period. But Ataman's offense and his style and his freedom that he gives players who are capable, of carrying the load offensively, I think this is probably the best place he could go to where he could be himself and maybe have a slower adjustment here compared to other places just because of the pressure, what Panathinaikos expect. But I think the open court offense, the high pick and roll, the ability to ISO, you're going to see that come through, and you're going to see him, be himself if he's healthy and if he's in shape. You never know, how guys' bodies are, after a long time out, not in game shape, not playing game flow. But, if he's, the player that he has been, throughout the course of his NBA career, I think he could be successful in Ataman's offense.
Yeah, I think just to kind of mimic what Errick said, I think the main thing, when I think of the signing is obviously how he's going to adjust to the European game, right? That's obviously the main factor when you look at someone who's played his whole career in the NBA and then coming over to Europe. We're seeing that now with Kemba Walker, Serge Ibaka. You know what I mean? These are guys who are kind of making these adjustments on the fly, but like Errick said, dynamic point guard who can score off the bounce, can play well in a pick and roll. It's going to be interesting to see the pick and roll with him and Lasort. I think it's going to be something that Ataman should incorporate in the offense if he hasn't planned on it already. And then adjusting to the Greek culture. Obviously we all know what comes with playing with Panathinaikos in terms of the historic essence behind it, and the level of pressure that can go into it as well. So there is going to be a bit of a learning curve there, but I'm excited to see it. I think it's going to be good for not just Panathinaikos, but I think it's going to be good for EuroLeague in general, having another good, solid NBA player in the mix.
By the way, you mentioned this pressure playing for Panathinaikos, and you know better than us what it means to play for Panathinaikos. What would be your advice to Kendrick if he was about to text you, after this podcast, to get some tips from you how to adjust culturally, mentally to the challenges that he's about to face?
I think culturally, it's not too big of an adjustment. Athens is one of those cities that, being American, you always kind of hear about. It's pretty westernized in terms of other cities in Europe. So I don't think that'll be much of a culture shock in the sense of, my thing would be, the biggest thing would just embrace it all. Good games, bad games, continue to be confident in yourself, continue to understand who you are and remember who you are. Because that was the biggest thing I struggled with at my time in Panathinaikos. So, if he were to text me, I think that would probably be the best advice I can give him. Win or lose, good game or bad game, continue to, be confident in yourself. Continue to be confident in the work that you put in, and just understand that it's going to be highs and lows, but through it all, just remain who you are, and it'll work itself
out. Kendrick Nunn was in the mix already for a few EuroLeague teams early into the season. I think Olympiacos was the first team that targeted him seriously, and at that point, a couple of months ago, he was obsessed about getting NBA contracted first and demanded really high salary, and his goal was to remain in the NBA. And I remember I already started having conversations with, let's say, scouts from different level about his possible transition to European basketball. And I remember, and I just checked my notes, and I spoke with some scouts again, from few scouts from different levels, that they saw because of his skill set, they saw that his transition to European basketball might be a little bit challenging. You all already mentioned those qualities that he has in quickness, ball handling, ability to create shots, pull-up, jumper, that should be his go-to qualities. And the fact that he also thrives when he's playing with the ball in his hands a lot. So I just thought, if Ataman's job is to please Lucas, him and others, it might be some kind of an adjustment both for his team. What do you think? What do you see as the main challenges for him on the court? And who do you think? I mean, Panathinaikos has pretty loaded backcourt. They already have a lot of people out there. Who do you think, he is going to take minutes away? Who he might take the role away from all of these guys that they have?
For me personally, I think that he's going to take a lot of Adoza's minutes. Ataman, when he speaks in the media, he gives you a warning, before he makes a decision. He shoots the warning shots. He told them, the team, that reinforcements would be on the way if guys didn't do certain things. And when he singles out a player, as a guy who played for him, he does it to motivate you, to uplift your game. But it's also a warning shot that if you don't get your play to the level that he desires or expects, there can be somebody else coming. And, I think there was several times he called out Vidoza's play, what he wanted from him. And, obviously, so Lucas is a guy who's, the franchise, he's Greek, he's been there, he has the experience, he's played at that level, he's going to continue to get his minutes. You don't play that guy that type of salary and not use him. I think Grant will still get some minutes. Obviously, they will drop some, but he's been, solid. He's a guy that's going to come in, defend, probably do the intangible stuff, be aggressive. He's, fitting and complementing well with the little things that he needs, but they need a little bit more firepower. And I think that's where Kendrick Nunn comes into play. So expect Vidoza to get less minutes, expect Grant, some of his minutes to get eaten up, and, expect him and Lucas to play a lot of minutes if he can make that transition. Now, if it's struggles there, or if there's a slow start to him as well, or if he's not in shape, that could buy Vidoza some time, but he needs to have some big games, or some big performances, or, unfortunately he could be out the door, or, he could be in a reduced role.
Yeah, it's interesting you say Vidoza, because, I think when I first saw that he signed with Panathinaikos, I thought that was huge for them. I loved the way he was playing in Red Star the year before. And kind of like you said, seeing him with a coach like Ataman, who gives his guards a lot of freedom, a lot of firepower, I was excited to see what that was going to look like. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen that so far. But I would be interested to see. It would be interesting to see if maybe Slukas and Kendrick Nunn might play together at times. You know, it's a smaller backcourt, but you got two ball handlers, two decision makers. Now in that case, you know, like you said, Vildoza's minutes might drop. I haven't really seen much of Kyle Guy. You know, his minutes might suffer a little bit as well. But you know, it would be really interesting to see if the adjustment doesn't take too long for Kendrick Nunn in terms of the smaller spacing, not like the NBA. You know, obviously the gameplay in itself is more physical than the NBA. So if there's if Kendrick Nunn can find himself adjusting to that quickly, then who knows? Maybe you could see a Slukas and Kendrick Nunn backcourt.
Yeah, I could see that too, because Kyle Guy kind of already out the rotation. He hasn't really, got many opportunities. And when you add another player, it just makes it more difficult. And a player of Nunn's quality, you're not paying him that salary, bringing him in on that contract to play, spot minutes. He's coming in to play a larger role. And we've seen, Ataman's offense be dynamic with two guys who can play pick and roll and who can score. Micic, and Larkins. And I think, maybe he wants to replicate that with, a guy who's really good in the pick and roll with Lucas, and then a guy who's really good one-on-one with Nunn, and, see what he can do there.
Yep.
It's interesting that you mentioned Kyle Guy, because he had like up and down start of the season, but I think he played a huge game yesterday against Olympiacos in the Greek league, scored 11 points, made 3 3-pointers, and actually started the game. So maybe, that was his reaction to the pressure or to the signals that Errick mentioned coming from Errick and Ataman. But I think this whole question is interesting because in the recent days, I was hearing that, let's say, a lot of guards in Panathinaikos shouldn't feel safe about their situation, about their future. And sometimes teams make signings to shake up the backcourt, the front line, the current roster that they have. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these other players going to adjust, how they're going to react, and how they're going to adapt. So maybe it's going to be, this natural competition of who's going to earn the place on the court in practices or in games, and because obviously now Ataman will have to choose from a lot of good players.
Those practices are going to be very fun to watch, for guys. I know Ataman.
High energy, real intense.
You're fighting for your life.
For sure.
Fighting for your life.
For sure. I was about to say, it's all on the line now. It's definitely all on the line.
And their practices are a lot of 5-on-5 if he's maintained the same structure as he has in the past. You play a lot of 5-on-5. So it's a lot of opportunities to kind of show yourself head to head against guys. I'm sure you're going to see, maybe guys guarding each other, turning up a notch a little bit, bringing that physicality, which will only, I think, make the team better, increase the level of play. But also, like you said, it's a small margin for error. So guys are going to be, on their game. They're going to be working harder, and they're going to know that, maybe I have one mistake in a game or 2 mistakes, and there's a guy who's, just as good or better that's willing to come in and take advantage of his time.
It's interesting you mentioned the way he handles the practices. And there are some coaches who recognize players performing in the practices, but there are some that, you can be one of the best players in the practice, but you're not getting much minutes or much opportunities on the court. What kind of coach Ataman is? Is he emphasize the effort, the level that you show in the practices, or it's all about, performing in games for him?
When I play with him, I think you got to establish yourself. So if you're a known commodity, you're somebody who's had success, who's done things, obviously he'll allow you to ease into it. You saw it with Larkin. He would miss a lot of the preseason sometimes with some unfortunate injuries. But then he allowed him to work his way in there, But at first, when he first came, there was a little struggle there. And I think it took him some time to adjust to Turkey, the new place. And you've seen him, maybe 1 foot out the door, 1 foot in the door, but then he responded. He played at that level and he just turned it up another notch. Same with me when I was with them, he gauges you based on your practice, where you're at, what you're doing. And then he does little mind things. Like if you're not shooting well, let's say you was 0 for 5 from 3, 0 for 6 from 3. He'll be like, everyone, practice is finished. And then he'll name those guys who aren't shooting well. You have to get 100 makes, 150 makes, like little stuff like that. And it just helps you, if you're a competitor, if you're somebody who loves the game, like you're just going to put the work in and, who wants to complain about shooting more, so if he doesn't want those type of guys. But practice, I mean, he's going to use that to gauge you. And if you do what you're supposed to do, he will give you an opportunity in the game. I've seen it with guys who performed well in practice and guys who struggle. He's less likely to go to you because him and other coaches, they don't feel that confidence. They don't feel like you're locked in. You're there. You're not in that rhythm. And the game is so much rhythm, so much confidence. Everybody at this level is a good player. But once you get in your flow, once you feel comfortable, once a guy believes in himself, if he has that confidence of the coach, you see guys start to elevate. That's why you see guys go to certain teams and not play that well. Not because they're not a good player, but because the system, the opportunity or the confidence or the trust given into them was less. And then you'll see them the next year switch teams and you're like, wow, this guy's a high level player. Like, no, he's been a high level player. It was just about the trust and the faith and the willingness of a coach to let him free.
Yeah, just like
sure.
Chimo.
Go
That's
ahead.
a great example.
No, go ahead, Kendrick. It's okay.
No, I was just gonna say, I feel like we all know guys who have been like that. We see them in a certain situation, and they might not perform up to what the level we know that they're capable of. And we see them next year in a totally different situation where they have the confidence in their self and from their coach, and it seems like it's night and day. I've been in that position before. I know plenty of my peers have been in that position before as well. So it's just part of the grind. It's part of the game, and you got to be able to adjust with whatever the situation is.
Yeah, and just like Chimo Moneka recently said in one of the interviews, there's no such thing as a bad player. There's just a bad fit, and we can see it through Moneka's example, the way he played in Monaco and the way he's playing in the Baskonia. You cannot say that, he was bad a few months ago and now suddenly he's a whole different player. No, he's just the same player, just in a different situation, different opportunity to show what he's best of. So yeah, that's really important, to know, because sometimes we're fans, basketball people, even GMs, they tend to write players off too soon, and they're basing on some particular bad examples that they shouldn't make a picture of the player and how good he can be. But just wrap this up about Panathinaikos. Where did you see? I mean, this whole situation is very interesting because yesterday Panathinaikos won their first derby game this season after losing the first two games, and this whole journey started from a huge loss in the Super Cup tournament before the official season started. It was a 20-point plus loss against Olympiacos. It was a horrible offensive game. But now we see them improving. They're in the EuroLeague already. They forced Olympiacos to overtime, and they were really close to win that one. And finally, they got the job done in Kostas Loukas' return to Piraeus, playing his first game against his former team in Olympiacos gym. With watching their development, and now with Kendrick Nunn signing, where did you see Panathinaikos in the playoff picture before, or where do you see them now?
I saw them just missing the playoffs, and I still see them that position just because it's really tough when you get a new coach, so many new players, a new system. It takes time to put that all together, especially when you're playing against guys who have been together 3-4 years, running the system, knowing each other's quirks, what they like on the court, where they like the ball, what people can do. It takes time, and that's built over the course of the season. And we haven't even saw how, Nunn may fit or may not fit, or how he'll be put into place. So I do like the fan support. I do like the talent. I like the energy that they're bringing. You can tell that something is alive there, that Ataman's he's brung a belief and a hope, and that's something that can kind of lift players up and get you marquee wins. They still have some struggles offensively, many periods where they don't score for long stretches. And the EuroLeague is so deep. I mean, there's so many teams who haven't even hit their stride yet. I mean, you look at, FS could potentially, if they find their groove, they're also in a new situation, a new coach, they have some core guys returning, but, if they hit their groove, something could change there. You think about Maccabi, they can lift up when Wade Baldwin comes back from injury. You think about Red Star, they have a new coach who's been to the EuroLeague final, who's been in that situation. He's starting to use all the roster. You bring a new life sometimes when you bring a new coach. They could also, make a change there. And those are teams that are, in that same position as Panathinaikos, fighting, for that playoff position. So I think that the potential is there. I think that they're building something a stepping stone for the next year and for the future. But I think it would be a tall task to expect playoffs. Okay, could it happen? Yes, it could. But realistically, I think just being in that mix is a step forward. And, I think next year is when you really start to see them take off, when Ataman can really control the roster, get his guys in there, have a full off season, and, really put his imprint on that team.
Yeah. I to begin the season, when I saw, how they looked on paper, I had them at the 7 to 8 spot, just getting into the playoffs. I think now after a couple weeks, and of course, it's still early, right? So you got to take everything with a grain of salt. But right now, like Errick said, I think I got them just outside of the playoffs. Just because when I look at a lot of these other EuroLeague teams, they kind of have that core that's already there. And that's, obviously so important when you talk about, games that you might need to win on, tough games that you might need to win on the road, or, double week games where, you kind of have to rely on that core group and that chemistry in key moments. And I don't think they have that just yet. I don't really know where the offense really generates from at this point. But again, you still have time to figure all that out, and you have Kendrick Nunn to come in and hopefully help with that as well. But as of now, I don't necessarily think they're a playoff team, but they're right. I think they can, if they can, the sooner they get pieces together, I think they can kind of make for a push to that last or second to last playoff spot. But if I'm speaking frankly, I don't see it happening this year.
It's good that we have a play-in tournament this year, and I do see them as a play-in team. And then I think it all depends on the matchups they're gonna get. So you never know what kind of team you're getting in the playoffs and the play-in, if they're going to be in the best shape, if all the players gonna be available. So just staying in this mix already gives you opportunity, because as we saw in the last few playoffs, it's about right timing. It's about peaking at the right time, and the first seed can lose to the 8th seed or force the game 5, and it's unpredictable as it might happen in today's basketball, especially with the EuroLeague. So
if you got,
especially
if you have them in the play-in, who's out? Maccabi, Partizan, Red Star, Efes, Milan.
You're putting me in a tough situation.
Who's out?
Man.
I mean, I'm curious.
Out of the teams that you just named, for me, I might have to go Milan. Milan might have to be out of there for me, from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, because most people probably have what most people would say potentially Bologna, Valencia, Zalgiris, Maccabi, Panathinaikos, Partizan, Efes, rest are all fighting probably 4 to that 10 spot.
Mm-hmm.
At least. Yeah. And so it's tough. Like, so many good teams. Yeah. It's not like we think Panathinaikos is bad. It's just the depth of the EuroLeague, I think, has improved immensely. A lot of good players.
And I think at that it's just going to come down to who's really hottest at that point. I think, wasn't last year one of the most competitive years in the EuroLeague? Mm-hmm. From, I can't remember what the standings were, but every game matters. Not to be cliche, but I think once we get to that tail end of the season, it's going to be who's healthy, right? That's number one. But who's got the best rhythm, who's in the best shape. And who's really clicking, because who knows, man? It can be night and day with who we're speaking about now and who we can be speaking about 6-7 months from now.
So who you gonna take out, Donatas? Who you gonna take out? I know there's got to be 2 or 3 big teams. If you think they're gonna make the play-in, there's 2 or 3 big teams that you're gonna have to leave off.
To be honest, from the current playoff picture, I'm really unsure if Virtus or Valencia gonna remain in the top 8.
I agree.
It's early. They're on a good streak, but it's going to be really hard, to keep the bar so high. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big believer in Žalgiris, although I'm from Lithuania. But I'm just realizing that I'm just being realistic. This EuroLeague is strong as hell. So with these teams, it's going to be really hard to repeat the consecutive playoff appearance. So my idea of seeing Panathinaikos in the play-in is that I'm not sure how Maccabi gonna survive this season with the situation that they have to deal with.
Yeah, it's tough.
Playing away all the time, how it affects players mentally. In the long run, it might affect them. This Milan thing is I don't know, is a mystery for me. But the problem with Milan and some teams, like FS also started kind of slow, but problem with Milan is like at any point of the season, they can bring a huge player, like top player from the top shelf, and it might dramatically change the flow of the season.
Mm-hmm.
If they would stay with the same team, I would say that I might have them out of the top 10. So I'm not sure if Zvezda will improve enough to make the play-in, but at the same time, we're hearing that Sfairopoulos might do some adjustments. So that's the problem of the EuroLeague. It's not even November. Teams tend to sign big players and change the flow of the season dramatically. And we are not even sure if that's the final roster that we have in Panathinaikos.
Yeah. And we still got Partizan. Like maybe they're going to start hitting their stride after that big win.
Yeah.
We'll see. That these predictions, these early October predictions, of course, gonna make us look stupid if we will rewind this podcast in March or in April. But that's the part of the podcasting, and especially when we do it in the EuroLeague. This is the most unpredictable tournament that we have.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah, and there is this case with Olympiacos. They lost to Panathinaikos, and they lost to Panathinaikos in kind of, horrible fashion. 54 points at home. And I have to be honest, it was one of the strangest games, or at least stats I've ever seen, or I've seen in a while. I mean, they were 4 from 16 from the free throw line. I'm not sure if I ever saw anything like that at the highest level. They were 35% from the field against Panathinaikos. In 5 games they played in the EuroLeague. Olympiacos have the 16th offensive rating per bballytics.com. There are 15 in the 3-point percentage, 18th in the pace, and 17th in the free throws attempted, which maybe shows that they lack of aggressivity. What do you think? I mean, having the second under 60-point game in the last couple of weeks, is it something? Is it nothing? Is it everything? Does it show that they still, although they signed so many players for their backcourt, does it show that they lack of this elite creator that could create shots for himself or for others, or just the time of adjusting? Because we should not forget that they're missing the MVP of the EuroLeague and the player who was, scoring when it mattered, Kostas Lukas, who switched sides.
For me, I think that it's just been some inconsistencies in their offense. They have long lags sometimes where they don't score. Sometimes they look potent, they're shooting, they're moving the ball. And then some games they're just struggling to manufacture good looks or easy opportunities. I think they're a group of winners. So there are many games this year where maybe they didn't deserve to win and they found a way to win. They made the little plays, the intangible stuff, the hustle plays. Like, they're tough, they're gritty. I give them that, and their experience. And teams like that, they find a way to kind of push through. But the problem is with this depth of this EuroLeague and all these talented scorers and players, you're going to need a little bit more firepower offensively. And they showed it at times that maybe they could get through, without, the MVP. Maybe they could just find a way. Look like guys were, showing, a little bit of growth. You've seen it in the first couple of games, but it's probably not realistic to expect, maybe Thomas Walkup to go 5 or 10 from 3 every game. That's tough. He's out there guarding the best player. He's playing, almost 30 minutes a night, putting a lot of people in tough situations with his defensive intangibles and skill set. It's taxing to play in those double weeks and to go in the Greek League, play all these games and expect him to pick up a lot of that scoring slack and to go hold the best player on the other team, to under double figures. So I think they need to find some opportunity. I think what really hurt him is Cannon getting into foul trouble. He's had some problems with foul trouble in a couple of those EuroLeague games. And, he's that guy that can give them a spark offensively, with his shooting, with the way he can get hot. And, with him getting in foul trouble, with Walkup having to carry a heavy load, I wouldn't be surprised if they do turn to the market. I think Nigel missing a game or two kind of hurt them a little bit. And he's a guy that can really pick up that scoring slack as well. So I think when they're whole and they're healthy, they've shown that they have the capability. Now they just have to be healthy, and it can't be injuries to the main guard positions. Now that's a lot to ask, over the course of a EuroLeague season. But if Cannon's healthy, Walkup's healthy, and Nigel's healthy, I feel like they have enough firepower to get it done in that backcourt. But if one of those guys are out, whether it's foul trouble or injuries, it's really a struggle for them offensively to maintain that pace with some of the elite scoring team. Will they keep the game close? Yes. Will they be choppy, tough? Greeks are known for that tough defense and their strategy and all that type of things. But, sometimes you're going to have to put the ball in the basket. And, that's where they struggled in some of those games. No matter how good you are defensively, you're not going to win many games scoring 60 points, at a high level of European basketball.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I think of Olympiacos, I think of, gritty, right? Really grinded out, 40-minute game. And then, that's kind of the identity that they built for themselves. But at the same time, you do need that firepower when you're going up against another offensive juggernaut team. I would like to see, walk up, kind of take more of a step forward in that, creating shots for himself or others. I saw a lot of it during the World Cup that just passed when he was playing with Greece. Things that, we don't see from walk up in an Olympiacos. Obviously, we're used to seeing him, run the offense, get guys open shots, pick up full court, be a pest, do all the gritty and grinding things. But with the World Cup, he was more this scoring role, coming off the screens, looking for not only shots for other guys, but for himself too. And it was pleasantly surprising for me because I just always known him as, kind of a traditional point guard and a defensive, juggernaut. So I would like to see him, kind of take on that role of being more of a threat to get himself looks as well as getting other guys involved. Like you said, you touched on Nigel Williams-Goss helping out with that point guard role a little bit, taking some of that wear and tear off a walk up. But I think, offensively, a lot of it's going to have to be run through Isaiah Cannon. He's their cannon off the bench, whether he's starting or coming off the bench. He's the one that really gets it going when he's making these threes and at home, he's getting the crowd involved into it. He has to find a way to keep himself in game. So I think all those things combined, will definitely help them in the long run. I'm not really too worried about it because they have such a tight-knit core that has been together forever, from the coach to the players. Of course, it hurts losing the MVP, but I think they're more than capable of getting themselves into a position where they can be in the Final Four again, even without Vezenkov holding it down for them.
Yeah, enough of Greek teams. We've covered them pretty in depth. What about the Serbian derby that we had? Two Belgrade derby games in 5 days, one in the EuroLeague and the last one in the ABA League that we had yesterday. What did you guys learn about Partizan and Zvezda from their two derby games, if you managed to watch at least one of them in the EuroLeague? I'm personally, I was in Belgrade to experience it by myself. I would say it was a remarkable experience for me, and I cannot imagine how you guys can handle that kind of pressure and that kind of atmosphere when you're here on the floor where you have to, perform at the highest level. Really, if I would be in your shoes, I would go like 0 from 5, 3 turnovers, and just sitting on the bench, really, because I was stunned. I was really stunned for the first few minutes of the game.
Oh, it was a great atmosphere. I mean, anytime you get that derby, it's going to be special. That's something that, you tell people at home to go to YouTube to look at this. It's always a game you want to see. I think Partizan showed a lot of heart. Anytime you lose, not only a player of Kevin Punter's caliber, but his leadership, his big shot making. Sometimes when a big player is just on the court, it gives everybody a sense of peace, knowing that, we got him here. And to see Aleksa Avramovic step up, see Zach Ledee hit those clutch free throws, it just is something that's going to propel them and help them throughout the course of the season because they're showing that they can get it done multiple ways. Yes, we can get it done with Kevin Punter scoring 20 points and, hitting those tough dagger threes, but they also showed a different part. And that's something that's going to allow them to continue to grow. And Smalic has been solid this season as well. And they're finding different ways to win and to compete. And I was very impressed with them because I thought, as the course of the game was going, that they were going to lose. Red Star kind of controlled the game later. Things were happening. The guard play, they had a little spurt come in. They brought in the little guy, Yagos, and he really changed, the dynamic of the game. And, you seen different lineups with them. And, when you're watching 9-point game, 8-point game with, 6, 7 minutes left, I'm thinking, okay, it's probably over. And, they just found a way to continue to get it done. If you're a Red Star, you can feel encouraged about that's your first game with the new coach. You showed, life the ability to do that, but you didn't close. You had in your experienced player, he down the stretch, he made some errors, he made some mistakes. Milos is a great player, but he just hasn't found his rhythm this season yet. And, that eventually the tide's going to turn. He's going to hit some of those shots. He's done it so many times. And unfortunately, he just hasn't been shooting the ball well. And he had some good looks. And it happens, it's part of the game. But I think, them going to that 3-guard front is really going to help them and allow them to keep, Milos fresh, to keep Shabazz fresh, and to give them different looks and to boost energy. But Partizan, I think, is going to take a leap forward just because, when you go through that type of environment, that type of win, it brings you closer together and it alleviates some of the pressure. Where Red Star, I think it's going to be really a gut check moment because playing in those type of places with those type of fan bases, it can be really difficult once you face adversity. And usually there's two things that happen. That adversity either can break you and divide you and create individuals in that locker room, or, it can bring you closer together. And even if you don't have, the support of, everyone outside the organization, you have each other. So I'm curious to see which way it's going to go. I played for Ioannis Sfairopoulos, and, he's a great coach, good defensive coach, has good things, has experience. He's a guy that knows how to motivate people. And, he helped me throughout my course of my career as I was trajecting on the way up. We kind of rose up together from Ioannis. So, I believe he can get the job done. He's a guy that, I believe in. And if there's anyone who's coming into a new situation, he did it at Olympiacos. He's done it at different places throughout the middle of the season, come in and kind of shift the momentum and kind of change the approach of things and bring that new life into the team. And I think, he can do it, but it's not going to be easy. But, he's the guy for the job.
By the way, Errick, since you mentioned that you played for Sfairopoulos, there is this, let's say, thinking that he helps to elevate scoring type of guards in his teams that he had in the previous teams, starting, from Vasilis Panulis, Scottie Wilbekin. He obviously had some other guys who were thriving, playing under Sfairopoulos. Did you notice any special approach that he might have for guards, or in the way he helps you to perform at your best level?
Yeah. So I played with him when I was 25. And we were in a Euro Cup, and I was kind of like making my name in Europe, and he was really hard on me. So tough on me. And I was wondering, I was like, why did he sign me? Does he even like me? Like, that's how tough he was on me. But he pulled me into the side and he told me that, you could be special. You're a guy that I see can play at the high level, and you're not going to be back here next year. My goal is to take you to the EuroLeague. You're going to go to the EuroLeague and I'm going to go to the EuroLeague. And then, my mindset shifted. I said, okay, he just sees something in me and he's going to push me. And what I liked about him is he held everybody accountable. Usually with him, he's going to take whoever the best player is on that team and he's going to push them. He's going to elevate them. He's going to challenge them. He's going to make you play both ends of the court. And when the rest of the team sees how he approaches the guy, the best player, he's respectful, but he's going to bring the best out of you. It makes everybody else get in line because they see that if he's going to talk to, let's say, Milo Teodosic or Shabazz Napier like that, about playing defense, about doing the little things, about being aggressive, I know that I need to be those things. So he's a really good motivator. He's a good coach. He knows his hoops and he's going to hold you accountable, and he gives chances to everyone. Like, if you are putting in the work, if you're performing well in practice, if you're doing what you need to do, he's going to give you a chance, and you got to sink or swim. And I think that's what you saw with Yagos getting his opportunity, getting to play. He's coming in. It's a fresh slate. Everyone go out there, show me what you got. And then from there, he'll kind of make his rotation. And so I think that just gives infusion of life to the team and to players when you know that, I got a fresh start. Let me make my impact. Let me show how I can be valuable to this team. And, he'll allow you to know everyone's important. Everybody has a role. And whether it's setting screens, diving on the floor, cheering on your teammates, he values each member. And, I enjoy playing for him, and I always wish him the best.
Yeah, that's awesome. Before I talk about the derby, I just got to say you hit it on the nail. You hit the nail on the head when you talk about like a coach that players want to play for. It seems like he's obviously I've never played for him, but it seems like that's the prototype of a coach that a player wants to play for. You're holding people accountable, you're giving opportunities, but you're also reassuring, right? The same way. So just, quick little tangent. That definitely seems like, someone who a lot of players should want to play for. Going back to the Derby, the thing about it, whether it's, the Belgrade Derby or the Greek Derby, when you were with Ephes, I'm sure you guys had y'all derbies. It doesn't really matter what's going on in the respective seasons. It kind of like everything just focuses on this one game. When I was playing with Panathinaikos, obviously we started off the EuroLeague season terribly. I think we were 1-3 at the time. It was a lot of things were kind of building up in terms of like, maybe we need some roster changes, blah blah blah blah. But then once the Greek Derby hit, it was like, look, we need to win this game. It doesn't matter what happened before. We need to win this game. We need to, if we take care of business and we win this game, then things will calm down. And I think that's kind of the mindset that's kind of the atmosphere that these derbies have, right? So when you think of the Partizan Red Star rivalry, obviously, both teams are still, I think, trying to find their way with the new additions, and with Partizan losing key players from their run last year in terms of Lasort and Madar. I love what I'm seeing from Avramovic so far. I like the PJ Dozier addition. I think he's gonna pan out really well for them. I love what obviously KP and Nunnally have been doing for them. And then when you look at Red Star, pretty much a totally new team with a new coach, like he said, having a fresh start, clean slate. For me, it kind of seemed it was one of those anything can happen games, right? And it was a good showing for, I think, both teams. Even though Red Star couldn't pull away with it, I think it was a good foundation for the new coach, and kind of getting guys acclimated, because it's tough when you ask a new coach to coach his first game in Stark Arena with 20,000 fans screaming and hollering. That's not an easy task to kind of step right into, but it was great basketball as always. And I'm interested to see how both of these teams are going to fare, just not in the EuroLeague, but in the EuroLeague as well. Early predictions, I'm sure they're both going to be in the finals of EuroLeague, as they have been for so many other years. But in EuroLeague, don't be surprised if they both are kind of in the mix for playoff spots as well.
Okay, that's nice. By the way, it's good you mentioned the derby specifics, and I remember I had a lot of conversations about those derbies, and I kind of created this impression that you can actually suck for 5 consecutive games, but if you perform in a derby game, you're gonna change the way people look at you. Starting from the management and go to the fans.
Yes.
You can mess around and save your job if you have a good performance in the derby game. Never underestimate a good derby game.
Yeah, so these derby games can actually build a nice new contract for you as well, or at least keep your place in the team.
Right.
It's also gonna be interesting to see how those Serbian teams gonna try to improve their rosters, because Partizan, they're reportedly close to reach an agreement with Bruno Caboclo, who was having a strange story. He signed with Venice. He was supposed to play there, but he finally decided not to. He played for Israeli team in the, let's say, preseason games of the NBA teams, hoping to get the NBA deal done. And now he's about to return. And from what I hear also as well, that Partizan is really close to signing him. I don't know if you guys could expand on if he's the right fit for this team, if he can produce the game that Partizan needs at this moment for their front line.
He was really good in last year when they won the German league. He's a guy who has size, has good hands, he can finish. I'm familiar with his game. He's a good player, but to expect a rookie who's never played at the EuroLeague level to carry a team or to make that change, it's really tough. Does he have talent? Yes. Has he played at a high level? He's played at the mid-level, but he's a guy who I think, when you're a 5, it's an easier transition, right? You're screening, you're rolling. If you have good guard play, they can kind of make the game easier for you. He has a great coach if he goes there. Avramovic is a guy who's going to kind of bring him along. Expectation level is going to be extremely high. You got to remember, Lesort was there. That was a guy who was a fan favorite, who played phenomenal basketball and is still doing a great job at Panathinaikos as we currently watch. But I think it's just a situation where he's been playing basketball. He was doing some games with the Israeli team on the circuit, playing against some NBA teams. So he's been playing. He might be a little bit in form, but I think it's just a tall task. I mean, you think Frank Kaminsky is a guy who is highly regarded, played in the NBA, had a big role, was a superb college player, and he's having an adjustment period himself. And this is a guy who's played major minutes on NBA teams, legit role. So, it's one to be, maybe he's better suited in a situation where he's coming in as a backup, rather than being the main 5, just until he gets his feet wet, until he builds his confidence, until he, adjusts not only to the demands of playing for Avramovic, but the demands of playing for a club like Partizan. When you lose at home, no one cares. Like, you come in the next day, you lose at Partizan, it's a little different.
Yeah, for sure. Facts. I think I like what I'm seeing from Smailagic. So I'm thinking, maybe he does come in as a backup. Even if the adjustment isn't as bad as we might think. Just because, like you said, there's familiarity with Smailagic and not just Partizan, but with Obradovic and the rest of the guys. There's familiarity there. There's we already know how he plays. We already know how he's going to handle these big atmospheres, these big, huge games. So we kind of know what we're getting in that regard. With the new signing, I think if it does go through, I think it'll just kind of be, kind of a filler in. We just need some help in the interior position right now. We need some rebounding. We need some interior. We need a different look from the inside. So if the signing does come true, I don't expect it to be game changing or season changing overnight, but I definitely think he can contribute for sure.
It's funny you mention it because like a few hours ago I had conversations with some scouts and they actually said that at this point of the season nobody should be considered as a game-changing addition. So and people usually they have new players bring excitement. In-season additions also bring excitement. It brings some new topics to talk about, new hopes. But people, they should really understand that it's not like it's not like something that's gonna change things dramatically. It's just addition to fill some holes, to fill some gaps that the team is facing. And just watching Partizan, I just thought that they're missing some rim protection. Don't know if Caboclo would be the right person, to fill that gap. But of course, they needed some addition in the front line. And I'm just curious to see if they're gonna make some other changes because there was this conversation. There were rumors, the people they were exploring that they might add another perimeter player. And now we have Kevin Punter injured, and he is out for at least 2 weeks. And from what I hear, it might be even. He might be out even longer, and we're talking about being out for 2 weeks, 3-4 weeks. It usually means quite a bunch of EuroLeague games. So I wouldn't be surprised if that situation would force them to make backcourt additions or to be at least a bit more aggressive with the backcourt additions, unless Aleksa Avramovic continues to play the way he's playing and delivering those crazy fourth quarter and crunch time performances. Then they might stay with the roster they have.
Yeah, World Cup Alexi is different. That boy different. Hey, he came up. Hey, he been hooping. I gotta give the credit to him.
He came back in crazy form. And it's funny because when they lost Madar, he was a big energy guy for them last year. Picking up full court, getting these steals, making these plays out of that seemed like just kind of happened out of nothing. So losing him was obviously a huge piece for them. And Aleksa just kind of came in and just filled that role and is just riding that wave, man. He's doing a phenomenal job right now.
Guys, let's continue with the Spanish teams because I think that they really deserve quite some recognition. Real Madrid stays on top of the EuroLeague as the only undefeated team so far with the perfect record, 5-0. Barca actually got the first loss just because they played against Real Madrid last week. They're 4-1, just as Valencia on a crazy start, 4 wins in 5 games. And if you go further to other competitions, you see Gran Canaria being perfect in the Eurocup, or for instance, Unicaja Malaga with Kendrick Perry perfect in the first 2 games. So, another great start for the Spanish teams. We'll see how they're gonna finish the season. But if you could, it's the question for you, Kendrick, basically. If you would exclude one biggest strength of all of those winning teams so far, we will continue with Baskonia later. But what makes, Barca, Valencia, and Real Madrid so great? You already faced 2 of these 3 teams at the start of the season, whether it was a Supercopa or ACB season. What kind of impression did those games leave to you?
Well, when you look at Madrid, right? They're the defending, EuroLeague champs, and they've brought everybody back. They've added Campazzo, which is, that at this point that doesn't really need to be said. Playmaker, leader in every sense of the word. They have a really good balance of offensive firepower and defensive, just different matchups. They can go really big. They can go fast. They can kind of match up with anybody offensively and defensively. And again, you keep hearing me talk about how important the core and the chemistry is, and they've got that along with guys who have been there. Chacho Rodriguez, Rudy Fernandez, Sergio Llull. These are guys who have seen it all. It seems like so they're never really phased by. It seems like they're never really phased by really big moments. And then you put them with a dynamic playmaker like Campazzo. Gabriel Deck is playing out of his mind so far this season. Obviously, you got the interior of Twin Towers of Tavares and Poirier. I mean, they just got a lot of pieces, man, and they're a very hard team to beat. You got to play damn near perfect to beat them, and you got to have some luck on your side. When we talk about Valencia, I love the additions they made this season. Brandon Davies, Damian Inglis from that was previously with Gran Canary. Semi Ojale was a big one for them. And then they kept their firepower with their guards in terms of Chris Jones and Harper. Along with, Claver, their Spanish guys who have always been key contributors for them as well. So I think with them, their biggest thing is they're big as well. They can switch almost, 1 through 5, and they cause teams problems. They can keep up with their bigs, can keep up with guards on the perimeter, and their guards can kind of hold their own with bigs in the post. So they create a lot of mismatch problems for teams. And then Barca, with them, obviously we could have wrote them off when Mirotic left, with the new coach, but they're right back in the mix as well, signing Jabari Parker. I think there was a bit of a learning curve in terms of transitioning from the NBA to this game, but he's coming along to his own. Obviously you still got Lapro. You still got the guys who have been around and who have won them games. So, it's just, like you said, Spain is it's one of those leagues where it's highly competitive, night in and night out. We're seeing that through not just EuroLeague, but Euro Cup, Champions League as well. And the ACB is a domestic league. Everybody knows it's one of, if not the best, domestic leagues in all of Europe. And I think it's just a testament to the talent and the kind of the system and the foundation that Spanish basketball has set over the years. But it's exciting to be a part of, and it's exciting to watch these teams kind of grow and learn how to maneuver from last season to this season.
Errick, do you have anything to add about the greatness of the Spanish team so far early into the season?
Oh, Spanish teams have been excellent. I mean, you kind of expect it from Madrid just because, they're the returning champion, they're ultimate consistency. But what's surprising to me is that they've had all this success with Tavares, still, finding his rhythm. If you would have told me that Tavares would be averaging less than 3 rebounds a game, 6 points, and they'd be 5-0, I would have said you're mistaken. You know, there's got to be at least 1 or 2 losses in there. But the fact that they've been able to maintain this pace, you know, with him finding his way, where it's stepping up even more, it makes them more dangerous. I mean, imagine when he's, you know, at that form that we know he's capable of and he will return to. It's going to be scary. Barcelona, like he said, huge surprise, only because the talent's always been there, right? But anytime you have a coaching change, you're always wondering, you know, how guys are going to adjust. You know, you lose a player of merited status. You know, I'm uncertain, you know, what we're going to get. And they come out and they look great. I mean, they have size, they have length. They're playing with passion. They're playing hard. And, you know, they're playing more of a Spanish style, a little bit more freedom, a little more up tempo. You're starting to see that success for them. So, you know, kudos to them and for their play. And Valencia is the biggest surprise. You know, you've seen that they started off slow last year, which was expected. New coach, new system, you know, coming up and, you know, kind of adjusting. And, you know, now that coach has had that year in, you know, he's able to kind of implement his style, what he wants, get his players in. He returned to Chris Jones, you know, who I think is a very good point guard, you know, one of the more underrated point guards in the EuroLeague. And I always love Brandon Davies' game. You know, I think, you know, he shoots the mid-range. He's smart. You know, he's really good on the pick and roll defense. He can post, you know, score in that mid-post area or back to basket. I think they add that dimension. And, you know, they just have a lot of guys that can hurt you. You know, they're not dependent on one scorer to go get 18 to 20 points. You know, it's going to be 5, 6 guys who can really kill you from that 8 to 13 point range. So, you know, I think they're somebody that's really surprised me. I don't know if they will maintain that pace. I don't know if it's even realistic to expect that. But, you know, what they've done so far, you know, can be applauded. You know, their coach has done an excellent job. Mumbro, you know, I played against him years ago. Good to see a player doing well as a coach. And Baskonia, it's just bad to watch. I mean,
they struggling right now. They just
on my EuroLeague pass, if I see Baskonia, I just skip right through it. I don't even want to watch it. Like, they have some good players, they have some talent, but they're just not playing quality basketball. They don't look good. The game looks tough. Every time you turn it on, they're losing. It's hard. You know, it's just not a team that's on my favorites for tickers, you know, to watch. You know, they could be playing even one of the top teams. I just skip on right by, you know, so, you know, maybe, they'll start to play better. There'll be a change. There'll be something where, you know, with Dusko coming in, bring firepower, but, you know, right now they're hurting the quality of the Spanish success in the EuroLeague, but maybe this will change soon because the other 3 teams are playing really good basketball. And it's not just about wins and losses. You know, sometimes you can lose a game, but it's how you lose, you know, how your offense is looking, how your defense is looking. Is the chemistry there? You know, are guys enjoying playing with each other? Like, I'm just not seeing, you know, that fight, you know, man. I think Dusko will come in and I think he'll bring, you know, that effort, that fight, and that change as he's done so many times on his return to Baskonia. At this point, just give Dusko a lifetime contract. You know, that I mean, why get rid of him? Why get rid of him?
I mean, once I saw he left Red Star, I was like, if this Baskonia job opened up, it just seemed inevitable. It honestly, at this point, it just seemed inevitable. You know, there was talk after we beat them in the ACB. What was that, last week or maybe a week or so ago? It was definitely whispers at that point, but I was just like, you know, it doesn't surprise. I don't think that shocked any of us, honestly. You know, it's kind of what has been going on for the last however many years. So, like you said, just make sure they don't change the key card. You know, keep his key card,
same apartment, same car,
so he can just always have access. You know,
same bank account. Don't even close the account. Just keep it there. Have the wires come direct. If I'm a coach, I'm gonna stay away from that job because I know as soon as I lose a couple games, Dusko breathing down my neck.
Right, I was about to say, you know, he's not too far behind.
Yeah, I believe Dusko will fix their game in the short term at least. That's what he's known for. I mean, he's gonna make another 6-hour practice session.
They gonna be tired
or whatever.
They gonna be tired. They gonna earn their money.
I mean,
right,
every dollar.
Right.
He will increase the physicality. He's gonna improve the defense, and you know, Baskonia will get better because they have good players and they're already making moves. It was already reported that they were interested in Chris Chiozza, and from what I hear, this is the move that likely to happen. And from what I hear, they might actually make at least one more move, if not more. So again, this is the EuroLeague we deal with. You know, the team can change the entire picture of theirs with 1-2 changes. There are no salary caps, no trade restrictions, nothing. So with Dusko, they're gonna get some spark, and I believe that he's gonna demand some adjustments. So it's too early to write them off at the beginning of the season. But the guy has to change his off-season game, because usually he joins the team during the season, he fixes the stuff, he wins cup here and there, and then suddenly he makes those crazy practices. His players look tired at the start of the season, and now he's out of job in November. So he has to do something with his off-season game.
Yeah, or they get injured. You just never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, maybe.
By the way, his return to Baskonia became something like anecdote here in Europe. I mean, it's his fourth stint with Baskonia, and I think that this for sure has to be some kind of EuroLeague record all time. But at the same time, it kind of shows that the head coach's circle in the EuroLeague is kind of closed, very small circle of coaches, and usually the same names are circulating. And I was curious if you could suggest some new face non-EuroLeague coach for the top level in Europe, excluding your coaches, whether it will be from Europe or even from the NBA, but of course realistic options. Do you have any suggestions, any names, anybody you kind of recognize playing against either it was domestic league or BCL Eurocup competitions? Maybe somebody left you a really good impression.
For me, I'd have to look up his name, but he was the coach right now at Paris. He was at Bonn last year. I was just really impressed with his name. I mean, he's a great coach just as far as like how he has his team prepared to play, the effort that they play with, the energy, what he does on, from a small budget to a mid budget, like how the system is in place, how he gets those guys to play, how he gets the most out of his players. I was really impressed with him. He has Paris rolling in the Euro Cup right now. Who knows? Maybe he'll be in the EuroLeague, if they're able to win the Euro Cup. But he's a guy that's young, that has that passion, has that energy, and seems to really know his stuff. I don't know him personally, but just as an opponent, just seeing the adjustments he was able to make and seeing how he had his guys ready to play their game plan. I thought that was a guy who is a EuroLeague level head coach, and if he's not there soon, I mean, it's on the way.
Just to clarify, we're talking about Thomas. I'm not sure about my pronunciation, but Thomas Isalo.
Yeah. I almost was gonna say Laszlo. I didn't know how to say his name, but yeah, he impressed me, and I think he's going to take Europe by storm, and I think he's turning a lot of heads.
Yeah, he did some great job in Bonn. He's 41. He's a Finnish basketball head coach, and I also hear a lot of good stuff. He kind of reminds people Dimitris Itoudis in a way. Disciplined he is for his tactical knowledge as well. So that's for sure one of the hottest non-EuroLeague names that we have in the coaching department.
Yeah, for me, I say the first coach that comes to mind, and I don't think he would, but my former coach when I was at Mega, former Partizan player. His nickname is Dejan Milojevic, I want to say.
Milojevic.
I feel like I was going to say, I feel like I just butchered his name. But when I played with him at Mega and then playing against him the next year when he was at Baguchnos, just a guy that knows how to get the best out of his players, puts them in the right positions to be successful. It was a little different when I was with Mega because, you got to understand how Mega is. It was just me and a bunch of 20, 21-year-olds. So, of course, there's a maturity curve there. But to put him with a good, solid group of real professionals who understand themselves, who understand what it takes to be professional, put them in the right position. And then he's a player's coach as well, right? He's not a pushover to where guys aren't going to practice or whatever, but he knows how to get the best out of his guys while being able to relate to them the same way. He's currently an assistant coach with the Golden State Warriors. So again, I don't think he's gonna leave that situation anytime soon. But that's someone who I would love to see in a head coaching EuroLeague position. Knows the game, has played the game at a high level. One of, if not I'll go out on a limb and say one of the most successful or one of the best players to ever put on a Partizan jersey. So obviously he knows the game. He knows what it's like to play in Europe at a high level. So I think he would be a great fit to be a EuroLeague head coach.
Yeah, he was a hell of a player in Partizan years as well. And, you know, you never know. If Željko leaves or if Zvezda gonna make... Okay, he's not going to coach Zvezda.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know if he going to, I don't know if he going to Red Star, but, you know, if something happens with that, something happens with that Partizan job, you know, if Željko decides to hang it up or whatever the case may be, who knows?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting name you brought up. So yeah, I hope EuroLeague teams are listening, you know, and they're about to bring some new faces when the change comes. Speaking about EuroLeague and Europe, there was this Jordan Lloyd's tweet last week that Mike James is the best player in Europe right now, and it's not even close. Lord have mercy, 100%. Do we all agree with Jordan Lloyd?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much known well before this season. I mean, that Mike was always one or two, you know, best players. I've said it, you know, on a podcast, either it was him or Mirotic, you know, for the last like 3-4 years, I've been trying to decide. But the form he's in, the way he's playing, I mean, he's always a nightmare to guard. He's explosive. He's fast. He can shoot. He can play pick and roll, play the isolation. Even has a little post game. The way he finishes in the paint is excellent. And I think he's took up his efficiency even to another level this year. He's sharp. He's crisp. He's playing less minutes and doing more, which is, you know, surprising. And I think, you know, the way that he's able to, you know, to lead the team and, you know, to get them where they need to go. I mean, he's having an MVP caliber year, and we've seen this before. You know, the year he was in Cheska, he was dominating, and, you know, him and the Tudors had their thing, and, you know, what was happened. But, you know, I think if he finished the season, I mean, he was the MVP of the EuroLeague, no question. But, you know, they were first place at the time, and I mean, he was averaging almost 20 points a game, but I think 18 or 19. And this year, he's kind of doing the same thing. So I think for him, it's just been years and years of consistency. He sustained this level of success, you know, for, you know, 7-8 years, even longer. You look at it, 4,000 point scorer. I mean, very likely he'll be the number one scorer in the history of the EuroLeague. You know, I know Decolo's still playing, but, you know, at this pace, he's going to catch him. You know, Mike is 33 years old. You know, it looks like he's not slowing down. I see another easily 2-3 high level years, maybe more. And, you know, with the format, you know, you're talking about him possibly playing 35 to 40 games a year, averaging 16, 18 points a game. I don't see why he can't be the number one scorer, which is something special, you know, especially for an American. Like, just to see, you know, it's tough to stay on one team. It's tough to have that long sustained success as you age, and, you know, to see him continue to play, you know, he's for sure top dog. You know, respect to Mike James.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree with Jay Lloyd. You know, what Mike has been able to do, you know, not just this season, but past seasons has been remarkable. You know, I'm a huge fan of his game. I love the way he approaches his game. And like Errick said, it seems like he's doing, if not more, he's doing just as much as what he's doing with less minutes. You know, everybody, you know, when you look at Monaco's roster, you say, you know, well, you know, there's only one basketball between Mike and Nicolo and Jay Lloyd, and now adding Kemba Walker. But you know, Mike, he leads those guys in his own right, in his own way, and, you know, he's playing high level basketball at the same time. And it's good to see. You know, as a foreigner, you know, coming to Europe, he was someone who I always watched and kept in a highlight, just because of how he approached the game and just kind of what he stood for. You know, I love that he's outspoken, you know, just as I am on Twitter and social media. But no, if for me, it's a no-brainer. Mike James right now is the best player in Europe. And, you know, if he keeps up this level, then it should be, I don't know what the voting structure is for MVP, but it should be a unanimous MVP.
Yeah, let's wait. We're just 5 games into the season, and usually those conversations, they're around the best players of winning teams. So, you know, Monaco has to be a winning team, probably a top 4 team to help Mike to get that award. And you never know how things might change in a few months. And we actually had this EuroLeague player survey on BasketNews, and Mike finished third in a survey where players were asked who is the currently best EuroLeague player, and it was the survey that players filled before the season started. And he was just behind Eddie Tavares and Nikola Mirotic. I think, where I understand and I see why they decided to put them above Mike James. However, if you look at the start of the season so far, if we have to choose the best player of the EuroLeague until November right now, I mean, you cannot say that Eddie Tavares is currently the best player in Europe. He had a slow start and he has his own, I would say, health issues that caused him for a slow start. There is Mirotic, who is playing great basketball, but Milan is losing more games when winning so far. But with Mike James, for me, I was just one more time, I was convinced that, Mike James, especially in Monaco, he always performs when his need teams him the most. If you remember last year, Maccabi playoff series, I think that Monaco was struggling because of lack of EuroLeague playoff experience. I think that Mike James was one of the few guys that actually had any playoff experience. And all of those guys, they looked not as themselves. But Mike was performing not just to his best level, but he was helping those guys step by step to get into their normal rhythm to help them win very tough series against Maccabi. And I would say that Mike was delivering in all 5 games. Right now, at the start of the season, we see how much team lacked of Jordan Lloyd, how they were missing him. Kemba Walker, he needed time just to get back in a normal playing shape after all these long months of rehab and even rehabbing before the season. Elio Kobo, it was hard for him to catch up after the World Cup experience, and usually players after the World Cup, it's usually you might be the best player or you might be the worst player. It depends on how long the national team competition was for you, how much you were playing, and how much in shape you were at that point. Because if you're not playing in the national team, usually it means that for 2 months you're kind of off. You're not getting those real practices. You're not getting playing time, and then it's really hard to catch up that rhythm at the start of the season where you have to perform from the jump. So other Monaco players, they were also kind of struggling. But Mike James, when I saw him, especially from the third round, I think it was the game in Belgrade, and again, very tough environment to win against a loaded team like Zvezda, and he was the real leader of that team. And now we see them winning 3 straight games, and Mike James is a clear leader of that group. So, that's a recognition of his talent and mentality in moments when his team really needs him. So I also kind of agree with Jordan Lloyd, but come on, it's just October. Things might change quickly in the coming months, but for sure, Mike, we're gonna stay in this MVP conversation throughout the season. It just depends on some other factors. Last year we had this greatness of Sasha Vezenkov. Right now it's hard to foresee such player like Sasha Vezenkov who could, stood out with the crazy numbers that he had. So Mike might have a legit shot at finally winning this award.
Yeah, and the MVP award isn't for the best player. It's for the person who's playing the best on one of the best teams. Everybody knows Mike is one of the best in Europe. There's not too many people better at playing basketball than Mike James. That's for sure.
And Jay Lloyd got to boost his teammate up, right? You know what I mean? I'm doing the same thing with my teammates, of course. But there is some truth to it as well. He's playing great. He's a hell of a player. But it's kind of like you said, he's got to make sure, he can get Monaco to that top 4. Then he'll put himself in a really good position to get that MVP trophy.
Yeah, that's a good point, because actually Jordan is known as a glue guy as well, and that's another important role that he plays off the court, and sometimes it also gets doesn't get enough recognition that he deserves. And if you notice, he won all the domestic leagues in the last 3 years, I guess, where he has played on, so it also tells something about the guy. And since we're giving out those awards, I also asked you to pick your most improved player from last season. the biggest improvement that you noticed in the first few games. And I actually made, I wouldn't call it a short list, but it's, I would say, lengthy list of the players who really stepped up with their stats, at least. So I will go through these names. For instance, Tornike Shengelia, he was averaging 9.4
That was my first one.
points.
That was my first one.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead. Keep going.
Again, he was averaging 9.4 points and 11.5 PAR compared to this year's 18.4 points and 23.6 PAR, where he's getting those numbers from rebounding, from assisting the ball, and being one of the, I mean, not one of the anchor player of this great start for Virtus. So I'm not going to continue if you, Errick, decided to pick him as your most improved player compared to the last season.
For me, it was that big jump scoring wise. He's a guy who, it's almost strange to say most improved because he's an established commodity. He's a guy who's played at a high level, Cheska, many years Baskonia. He's been an all EuroLeague type of guy. And just to see him, kind of get acclimated, get back into the flow of things, dominate. What was special about him is that his ability to play make too. I mean, he's averaging 4 assists a game. He's able to beat those bigger, fives off the dribble. He's able to punish those smaller fours, on the block. But what I liked was throughout his career, he had problems, with his 3-point shot. The inconsistency with it. Last year, okay, he shot a good percentage, but he only shot 26 3-point shots, through the course of 23 games. Already through 5 games, he's already shot 17 3-point shots. That tells me it's a point of emphasis. It's something he's been working on. And he's shooting that at 53%. So you look at the assists 4 game, the points, almost 18 and a half a game. You look at his ability to rebound. I'm just seeing that he's shooting 75% from twos. Was showing you that he's finishing at the rim. He's finishing strong. He's a bull. Last year, he shot 48% from twos. Now, I don't know if that's something that he's going to maintain through the whole season, whatever. But that just shows me through the first 5 games as the main scoring option for Bologna and having them 4-1. That's what's even more impressive. So to me, he's the most improved. A close second, I had Bonzi Colston. He's really stepped up since Wade Baldwin's been out. Took his scoring average from like 10.5 to about almost 15 a game. And you can just see that confidence in him growing as a player. He's a really good 3-man, can play some 4, can shoot the ball, good in closeout attack. I'm liking what I'm seeing from him. I just tried to pick someone that I could think of. And those are the 2 that kind of came to mind.
Who's knocking that door?
No, I think to mimic off what he said, I think the biggest thing about Shengelia is just the fact that he's leading Bologna to wins right now, right? I remember when we faced off against Georgia in the EuroBasket. What was that? Not this past summer, but the summer fall previously. He was out with a shoulder injury, and just seeing how he was able to bounce back from that. And I don't want to say it looks like he's restructured his game, because he's still attacking, he's still aggressive, still getting to the paint, still taking advantage of his mismatches, whether it's on the perimeter or in the mid post or in the post. It just seems like his game is a little more complete, and you see that with the higher percentages of shooting from 2 and from 3. But again, the biggest thing is the W's and the L's. He's got his team to 4-1 so far, and they're looking really good. They're looking better than what I thought they were going to be this year so far. So for me, I think he definitely got my vote for most improved so far.
I also think that Shimo Moneke is worth recognition. The guy was averaging 3.9 points and 4.6 PAR the previous year in Monaco, and now his numbers, rose to like 17.5 points and 22.0 PAR. It's huge. The only problem with him that his team was losing, so that kind of ruins his resume for this early award. And there are just few other guys which I think are also worth to mention. For instance, Isaiah Cordonier, another huge reason behind Virtus' start, from 6.6 points and 6.3 PAR to 11.2 and 15.4. And it's not just about the stats, the confidence that he has in his game right now, either finishing or assisting, running the transition. Defensively, he's also a huge factor. So I think that for this full season award, if we would have most improved player of the year award in EuroLeague, he would have a legit shot playing such basketball like right now. Alex Peters, another interesting case, from 4.6 points and 4.5 PAR to 11.8 points and 14.6 PAR. Errick mentioned Vincent Poirier and him being on a hot start. And I think that he's on his expiring year, and it might help him to get a great new contract following summer. 6.1 points and 8.2 PAR last year compared to 12.6 points and 17.2 PAR right now. Johannes Thiemann is also interesting case in Alba Berlin. 8 points, 10.6 PAR to 13.4 points and 19 PAR. And that's after also great World Cup experience that he had winning the World Cup with Germany. Joel Bolomboy, one of the standouts in Zvezda, from 3.8 points and 5.4 PAR to 10.2 points and 14.2 PAR. Smailagic, that Kendrick mentioned previously, also doubled his numbers to 11.2 points and 11.8 PAR. And one of the last guys that I have on my list is actually Aleksa Avramovic, not just coming from 6.3 points and 5.4 PAR to 11.6 and 10.4, but I would say he improved the most in his game as well, transitioning from the energy booster, mostly becoming this annoying defensive player that you're facing. And now he's making clutch shots in a derby game and becoming a booster, huge factor offensively as well. So that impressed me the most, how he also improved the game and added some different weapons to his game.
And also, I wouldn't really put him in the most improved category, just because for me, he's always been a dog. He's always been a hell of a player. Is Keenan Evans. I got to shout him out just because of what he went through with his injury, and just to see him kind of bounce back from that, and putting up the numbers that he's doing thus far. He's starting to become one of my favorite EuroLeague players to watch. So I just had to shout him out real quick.
It's good you mentioned Keenan, because let's say he's one of those. He's not a new name in the EuroLeague. He's starting his third season, but EuroLeague is the league where usually the same players are just switching teams, and it's not easy for new guys, to make a quick change in the EuroLeague. And Keenan is one of those guys. And I actually had this question for you, since I'm having two great guards on my podcast. What were your favorite newcomer guard to watch and why so far in the EuroLeague?
And you wanted it to be a newcomer, correct? And it really took me some time.
Let's endorse some new names, new faces.
It took some time for me to really decide, because I was thinking and I was like, who's the new guy that I like to watch? And so I chose one, but there's a caveat. He hasn't played a lot. But Giagos dos Santos, I think it's just exciting to see the little guy.
That was gonna be mine as well too.
The energy he brings. He's able to shoot the ball, play pick and roll with a little flair. Showed up in the derby game, showed me the type of player that he could potentially be, just by anytime you're in that hostile environment, you're able to play at that level. So for me, I don't know him personally, but I was rooting for him just because I like the energy and the flair that he plays with, and it's always fun just to see the little guy out there showing heart.
Well, E, since you took mine, I think I'm gonna go with Cassius Robinson from Valencia. I think he's still kind of finding his way a little bit. But from playing against him last year and just watching him in the ACB, I know he can put up numbers. He's a microwave. He can really get it going. Once he finds that groove. So, if he really gets it going, paired along with everybody else on the Valencia squad that we mentioned before, they're going to be really hard to beat. And I think they will. I think they will get into that top 8 spot when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and I believe that Iago are gonna become fans' favorite for sure. And you cannot not to love his presence, because before this derby game against Partizan, he was benched by Dusko. He logged only 4 minutes in total before that game. He showed up in the first quarter. He changed the energy of the game. It really looks like the guy didn't care at all about the 20,000 people around, about this huge start by Partizan. It was, I think, 17-2. And he changed the game with his energy and with his confidence. Made some big shots in the fourth quarter as well. And it feels like Ioannis Sfairopoulos is trusting him. So, this whole change in Zvezda might also change his rookie season in the EuroLeague. So it's if that will be the case, it's gonna be a really exciting story, for another newcomer in the EuroLeague. In a way, how some unexpected changes might also change the outcome of your season and potentially even the career in the EuroLeague. And just the very, very last question I have for you guys, again, since I have two guys coming off the BCL competition, and I would say that race for the BCL title should be, in terms of unexpected race, being very open race for the title, it also should be a very exciting season. And you're playing for a good team so far, and I see you guys also competing to the title. But let's be as much transparent as possible, and you cannot pick your team. Let's say you're in the top 4, but who are the other top 4 teams you see competing for the Basketball Champions League title this year?
For me, I would say Jerusalem. We haven't got to see them play this season because of unfortunate circumstances, but they brought back the core. They added a guy like Brighton Lamar. They have a lot of talent. They're going to be able to play fast. They're going to be able to score lots of points. They also had won the Winter Cup in Israel before, everything kind of shut down over there. But, I think that's a team to be reckoned with. They made it to the final last year, lost. So for me, they're going to be tough. I'm not sure where they're going to play the games, how the logistics are going to be, how things are going to sort out. But that's a team full of a lot of talent. And a coach who's been there and took them, far in places. So there's someone I would look out for. And then the other one, you got to go with Tenerife. They're just proven, throughout the course of the time, the years they've had, all the Spanish teams usually do well in European competition. So if you guess one of them, you're probably going to be on par. And they have a core that's been there, that's done that. And I think, they lost a tough game in Drusafaka, but, I think they're still a team that's to be reckoned with and someone that you always have to consider when you're talking about a championship caliber team.
Yeah, I think Jerusalem is going to be in there. Hopefully, with the situation, it doesn't knock them too far off of, what they've built off of last year. Their coach Zigic, who I had the opportunity to play for in BasketNews after I left Panathinaikos, is a great coach. He knows the game, knows how to get the most out of his players. They added my guy Chris Johnson, who can help them both offensively and defensively as a stretch 4 that can play different positions, can guard different positions. They got my man Speedy Smith running the show, someone who I know from our younger days growing up playing against each other. And they brought back everybody. They brought back damn near everybody. They got their core group. So I think as long as the situation they're in doesn't knock them off the rails too much, they'll be right back in the mix. And then my sleeper team is Ike. I think when you look at Ike's roster, they definitely have the talent. When you look at Langston Hall running the show, you got Ben McLemore, another former NBA vet, Jordan McRae, who can score with the best of them. They got a lot of pieces. Your former teammate E. Matchup problem. You know what I mean?
Malaga's legends. Malaga's legends.
Yeah, another Malaga legend. Got to shout him out, man. They got a lot of pieces. So I'm excited for this BCL. I got to get back from last season, having the Final Four at Malaga and dropping it. So I'm excited, man. I love what Karşıyaka I love how you guys are looking right now. So it's going to be fun, man. I think this one might even be more competitive than last year.
Wait, Errick, didn't you mention just 2 teams?
Well,
It was Tenerife and Jerusalem.
well, you said if we were in the Final Four in Malaga, because I mean, I think Malaga's strong.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
I
I saw what you did. You did us 2 and then 2 others.
Yeah. So I think Malaga,
Yeah.
they got the same core. They already was there last year. They know what it is. Like super talented. They have the pieces. They can play big, small, fast. They can play in a half court. Like Malaga's a tough team. Like so, yeah, I thought that was just pretty much a given when you said anybody outside of those 2.
Yeah, that's actually going to be fun if you guys gonna both make the Final Four at the end of the season. So, where's the Final Four next year? Is still undecided, right?
Yeah,
it's always
they wait.
Yeah,
They
I
wait till
don't think they decided yet.
Yeah, they wait till like that Elite 8, I think, top 16, Elite 8, and then they kind of go from there. But yeah, gonna be good. A lot of good talent, a lot of good coaches, and Champions League does a good product. So I'm interested to see.
Yeah, they do a great job of running the league and just putting it. It just seems like top to bottom, you can never really just count anybody out, especially this early in group stage. Where teams are kind of trying to find their rhythms. Right now, it's more beneficial to the teams like ourselves, like Jerusalem, like Tenerife, who have the core together and who already kind of know how to play with each other. But I wouldn't be surprised if other teams who are kind of new, once they find a rhythm to kind of make some headlines in the BCL, just because it's that competitive.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have enough hands, to cover both EuroLeague and then BCL. I hope we will be able to do it if we continue to grow with the BasketNews platform. But it would be really cool to have a podcast from the Final Four destination with Kendrick and Errick at the end of the season to talk not just about the EuroLeague basketball, but a lot and in depth about the BCL season. So I wish you guys, to fulfill this little dream from the EuroBONUS podcast crew.
Well, you gonna have them boys ready to go. So I'm gonna make sure I follow suit and have my guys ready.
Let's speak it into existence. That would be beautiful.
Hey guys, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to hear your thoughts. It was a pleasure to connect your minds on this podcast as well. Thank you all and good luck throughout the season. Let's keep this Final Four idea real on the basketball court.
I appreciate you having me, and thanks for joining, KP. It was good to hear your knowledge. We already knew you know the game, but always special to have a good basketball player, but also a good basketball person who knows the game and does things outside of the game. You allow fans to see a different side of you. And for those who don't know, KP has a podcast. Tune in. It's good. Shout your stuff out, man. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. First I want to appreciate you guys for having me on, man. This was fun. Obviously you guys both know a lot about not just EuroLeague, but just the overseas and European basketball in general. So for me to be a part of this was something great. And yes, I got my own podcast that I'm bringing back called Life Across the Waters. It's more of a off the court story, if you will, getting a conversation with players about their specific journeys playing overseas, the ins and outs, the goods, the bads, the ups and downs, a little bit of everything. So check me out. I'm on all platforms where podcasts are available. And yeah, man, we gonna at the Final Four, we gonna shoot this, and then we gonna shoot the Life Across the Waters after. We gonna find some time.
Yeah, let's get it.
The people gotta have that one. I gotta get that one for the people.
Let's get it.